The heavens declare His story. My name is Daniel Vallis, and welcome to our channel. Thank you to all those who have been praying for me in this ministry, and also thank you to those who have financially supported this ministry as well. Your help and your prayers are so greatly appreciated, and your part is what makes this ministry possible. Together we can look for the Lord's return, and we can help each other, and we can encourage each other, and so much more as we see the day approaching. When we look at our timeline right now, we are constantly trying to get a clearer idea and a clearer resolution of the border that deals with the prophecy related to Shiloh and where we are right now on the celestial clock, and then also understanding where we are with the time and the seasons, and then seeing how all three of these go together. Now, we do not know where exactly the border is, but we are looking at historical context and biblical connections to those historical contexts. And so we have a very high suspicion, and the educated guess in our research shows us that it is around here somewhere, right where we are right now, the days where we are right now. And even though we are narrowing down the options, we still do not know exactly which border where it would be. We do not know the day or hour, literally. This is amazing to see, but we do have a very good idea that from a biblical context, it is around here. And from a historical context, it is around here too as well. We just don't know exactly where it is. And so we looked at the numbers again today and just shifted them slightly. Looking at the degrees in math, it appears we are past the border as it would be at 536 BC at the end of the Babylonian captivity. But apparently right now we're in the middle between that one and the other border, which was at 606 BC, the historic border at the time of the Babylonian captivity. And when Daniel entered into captivity and when he started learning the Chaldean astronomy too as well. So we're in a window. That's all we know. Do not get fixed necessarily on dates. We just know it's around here, very close to where we are right now. And we're trying to get more resolution, and we're doing our homework to make sure and be able to show where we are to the best of our understanding, knowing we won't know what border is the definitive border. As long as we're not in Virgo and we know we're around the historic border, we will continue to nail down and try to get more specifics on that. And we have a whole sheet now on the Google Drive called Finding Judah's Border, which we've been updating, and this is where we've been putting our homework to show, we're not just coming up with days randomly, we're not just throwing something up against the wall. This is educated guess. This is a research based on the historic context and precedents for the border being at this point on the celestial clock with the data that's right there right now. So download it, check it out. If you're good at math, check it out too as well. But we like to show this is our ongoing research. We are learning, and we will share it with you. We'll put it out on the table. We aren't making any predictions at all. We're just showing you this is what we're researching. This is what we know right now. So again, let me put the disclaimer there. This is not a 100% definitive border. The Bible doesn't tell us where the border is or what the date border is either. We just know historically it is right in this area. And it's also a very important biblical significance at this time period too as well. So if we go past these days, it's not a major crisis. We know it is around here somewhere, but we don't know what the definitive border is in context of the Shiloh prophecy. And again, the time frame we're looking at, it's highly connected. There's a lot of reasons why we're looking at this time frame from a biblical perspective and from a historical context. But that's all we can say about it. It's a highly connected time frame to research, but we don't know exactly 100% if this is the time segment to be looking at. And because if you back it up even further and push out the date a little further, that would cover the time of Isaiah too, as also involved in the prophecy of Messiah's coming too as well. But Daniel, with the Chaldean perspective and the prophecies related to Shiloh entering Jerusalem the first time he came, this is a highly connected time frame, and so that's why we're looking at it. And so we've also updated the event study calendar, so definitely download that, print that out, just so you have the up-to-date research and our understanding, but fully know that this is subject to change as we learn more. We know the border is around here somewhere. We don't know the day or hour for it, but we also find that our educated guess and our research lands and points right to a very important time, the days of Noah and Lot, that's on the scheduled Torah readings at this time, which goes right in hand with Christ told his disciples and us to expect him in the days before the flood, during the days of Noah and Lot. And so we definitely know we're there with the conditions in the world as well. But it has also highly caught our attention that we're right on historical commemorations of those events happening. And at the same time, scheduled readings are going on about those same subjects. So we must not let this escape our attention. This is another reason to print out these documents just so you can rehearse what is happening now on a scheduled event and with the celestial signs that we have no control over. What is going on at this time? On top of everything else that we're trying to get clear ideas of, what is already happening? What did we know is already happening here, even without trying to look at the border? We're at a very important time right now. The enemy knows it too as well. They've been watching the celestial clock. We're coming up onto the second Star of Bethlehem anniversary next week too as well, which also reminds us of the wise men again, how they saw the Star of Bethlehem a second time right before they were getting close to the king. There's a lot that should catch our attention and cause us to ponder at this time. And then, of course, by October 27th, we know Jupiter will be to Virgo at that point on the Chaldean astronomy star charts. So we know the time frame, the max window for the Shiloh prophecy would go up until the 27th. So we know the border is around here somewhere. But we also know that the window goes a little bit beyond where we are right now. And so we will continue to watch and we will continue to get ready, knowing we are in the days of Noah and Lot right now. And we're in a very important time that we should be making ourselves ready, and we should be watching and lifting up our heads, for our redemption is drawing nigh. Shiloh, coming to gather his people. And we've been learning about an incredible tapestry, not just the tapestry of redemption, with what Shiloh, our Redeemer, the Lion and the Lamb, what he has done for us, but we've also looked at the tapestry of individuals who have been at different stations along that tapestry too as well. Biographies that we would not have even looked at are considered without this study. And as we look at their life and how God used them in particular ways, we could see important parallels for us. And we've learned so much by looking at this journey, exploring the depth beyond what we would have on our own. And by being open to learning and seeking out what God is showing us at this time, we learn a great richness which blesses us at this time. And God can work in our life and shows us mentors and role models that we can learn from and apply in our own life too as well. The wise men went forward acting on so little information. They could go forward boldly, knowing and resting upon the prophecies that God had given, even though there were things that they did not know. And some of the most important details they did not find out till they were almost on the threshold of the door, so to speak. They didn't find out exactly where he was right until they got there. And we could look at the life of Daniel and see his life experiences that even though they could have been viewed from a human perspective as very daunting and traumatizing even, God used his background and his experience to have him where he needed to be in a critical place in history with an important education where he could influence later generations that would be part of looking for the Shiloh sign, which also Daniel was enabled to have a part of, Daniel being also of the tribe of Judah as well. And the connection with the lions too as well. It's an amazing story and tapestry that we would not have studied without Christ taking us on this incredible learning journey. And we've looked at Hebrews 11, and I highly encourage you to read the whole chapter and just study it. And look at all the examples that God gives us of what faith is. When God shows us and calls us and moves us, we should go out, even when we know we don't have all the information that we would like to have. And we can apply these same lessons to our life today. We have been warned by God just like Noah. We've seen different prophetic warnings. We've seen a broader understanding of the time with the last generations. We know things are coming together real quickly. We have so many warnings from God written in his word. It should move us to fear. We should be rising up. We should be doing something. It should move us to do something. And that movement, that action will be coupled with faith, because we will have the warnings. We will not have the whole map. We will not have all the details that we want. We are even told we will not know the day or hour, but we are told to watch anyway. And so we can take the warnings and the information that God does show us, and we could prepare ourselves, our life, our family, and we can live faithfully in light of the warnings with our eyes set on eternity. And also like Abraham, he was called. And we must be receptive to the Lord's calling at this time of things we need to do in our own life, actions we need to take in our life, and we need to go to him for wisdom and insight of how to accomplish the tasks that he wants us to do. We are called, we should rise up and obey, be faithful on what we do know. And while there is so much right here at our feet, so to speak, and in our path ahead of us that we don't know, we can look beyond, we can look to eternity, and we could see an eternal city, a place that is prepared for us. And we know that is in the future. We know we are called to do right now, to go out and seek our bridegroom, draw close to him. And so we know this is on the path to reach there. So we will go forward in faith, even though there is so much that we don't know. We will act faithfully on what we do know. The wise men went out on their journey, and some of the most important critical information, where he was, they did not find out till they went so far. And they got more direction and confirmation at the second instance of the Star of Bethlehem too, which should catch our attention when we consider where we are now too. We see the celestial signs going on right now, a clock that is also telling a story. We find ourselves at a proper time on the broader calendar, but also a very important time with a lot of stories and pictures and patterns and shadows at this time too as well that we were strongly told to look at in light of the signs as well. And then we see seasons rehearsed as well that also bring to mind other promises in Scripture that we have in mind in light of the signs and in light of the other shadow patterns in Scriptures at this time too as well. And we've been touching on the subject of the Revelation 12 sign, of how it is connected with the Shiloh sign. It is just another extension of the Shiloh sign. The part where we are at right now with the Lion of the tribe of Judah, that concerns the gathering. But the Revelation 12 sign, which will start in just a couple of weeks, that is connected to Shiloh too. That is his story. It's part of his story, and it's a sign that he is about to come again. He came the first time, but he is coming again, and that's what the sign is all about. So if you haven't yet, definitely download our Revelation 12 Shiloh sign. It's a sign that Shiloh is about to come again. Where we are right now with the Lion of the tribe of Judah, that concerns the gathering. But then the very next constellation deals with that he's going to be coming again. And we have to look at the celestial signs in light of the time and in light of the seasons, but we cannot look at them isolated, by themselves, cut out, and taken out of context. Now we have to look at these different aspects and these different points and these different celestial markers. We have to look at them in the context of what is the whole story. What is the Shiloh story? The Shiloh story has not ended. It was not fulfilled in the past. The Bible tells us quite clearly it's going to be going up through the tribulation and millennium. Jesus Christ, Shiloh, is the Alpha and the Omega. His story, the prophecy and the promises starts in the book of Genesis and goes all the way through the end of the book of Revelation. His story does not stop in the middle. No, it starts at the beginning and goes all the way to the ending. And he emphasizes several different times in Revelation, he is the Alpha and Omega. His story is from the beginning. It has not stopped. It's going to keep going all the way unto the end. And when we understand the whole story, then we can understand where we are right now in the story. When you read a novel and you know where the first chapter is and you know where the ending chapter is, you have a very good idea then of where you are in the story. But if you jump into it or you take them out of context, you're really going to be confused. To understand a chapter of a story, you have to understand the whole story. And so to understand these parts of Shiloh's story, the Lion of the tribe of Judah and the woman and even the serpent right underneath both of them, to understand those chapters in the story, we have to understand the whole story. We have to look at the Alpha and Omega, starting at the Alpha and also understanding what he's going to be doing up through the Omega. And we've been tracking Jupiter as the scepter actor in the celestial stage, so to speak. We've been tracking it along the ecliptic path on the astronomical celestial clock and its role in prophecy. And we're going to look at a portion of the ecliptic circuit today that's in the heavens. And all the planets and the sun and the moon, they travel along the ecliptic. Some a little bit closer to it than others, but they travel along that same line. And the Bible tells us in Psalm 19, the heavens declare the glory of God, and the firmament showeth his handiwork. Day unto day uttereth speech, and night unto night showeth knowledge. There is no speech, nor language, where their voice is not heard. Their line is gone out through all the earth, and their words to the end of the world. In them hath he set a tabernacle for the sun, which is as a bridegroom coming out of his chamber, and rejoiceth as a strong man to run the race. His going forth is from the end of the heaven, and his circuit unto the ends of it, and there is nothing hid from the heat thereof. The heavens declare the glory of God. The heavens, the celestial clock, the movement, everything about the heavens and the firmament shows and declares the glory of God. And notice the word showeth his handiwork. That has the idea of a demonstration and presentation, an ongoing activity. It's not just a visual event, but it is a demonstration show. And when we see the movements on the celestial clock and the beautiful choreography, we see his handiwork. We see a design to it all. We see the clockwork motion of it all. We see that, yes, this was most certainly designed. This was most certainly choreographed. This was most certainly placed there for a reason. This is not decoration. This is telling a story. This is telling a message. It's declaring the glory of God. And the Bible tells us every single day their motions are choreographing a message, and their speech is broadcast every single day. The story does not change. It's the same story. And this story along this line that goes throughout all the earth is broadcast every single day. And we're going to see the primary actors in the heavens acting out a story along the ecliptic. That's the name of the line. And when we look at the ecliptic, there's 12 constellations that lie along the ecliptic. We're just going to look at a partial picture today. And we've been primarily looking at the Lion of the tribe of Judah, Leo, and a little bit at the Woman, which is the next constellation. And we've been focusing primarily on Jupiter, because Jupiter represents the scepter and the lawgiver, and is part of the Star of Bethlehem sign. It's a prophesied star of the coming Messiah too as well. And so we've been tracking as it's been going across the stage, so to speak. The different stages and the different sets that it comes into will tell a different part of the story and a different aspect of Shiloh and of the lawgiver and of the scepter. And so right now we've been looking at the Shiloh prophecy concerning the gathering that will take place before the scepter departs from Judah. Once it departs Judah, though, it's going to be changing scenes, and that will be the Revelation 12 sign. But we've been watching it over the past year with its very deliberate choreograph and the symmetry and the design in the motion that it's had that's caught our attention. And keep in mind, Jupiter has its retrograde motion, which means it goes along the ecliptic, but then it does a loop, goes along the ecliptic again, does another loop, and this is its apparent motion. And so it's doing its whole loop-de-loop as it goes along. So just keep that in mind. And back in June 30th, 2015, we noticed the first Star of Bethlehem got a lot of news attention, especially about the rarity, hadn't been seen in 2,000 years, that closeness of that conjunction. And that caught our attention, particularly because it happened in Leo. And the first time this sign happened and what it was connected with, that definitely caught our attention because we knew we were already on the threshold of the last generation. And then by October 26, 2015, we saw this second Star of Bethlehem. That really got our attention, especially when we remembered the wise men saw two instances too as well. But then we also took note of the unique circling motion that Jupiter made at that particular point, which perfectly circled the hind leg. And this was very unique, and we've talked about this in the Shiloh booklet about how it is very rare. It hadn't happened in a couple hundred years, and it's not going to happen again for another couple hundred years. And so especially when we looked at the Shiloh prophecy, which dealt with departing the feet and departing Judah, that definitely affirmed for us, in context of the last generation, that this was a deliberate sign. This was not just coincidence. And so we've been watching it since then, most especially because we know of its importance, of what the prophecy states. And so we know everything we've been shown so far is very deliberate and choreographed and done with precision. And so we have full expectation that this sign is indicative of the Shiloh prophecy, and our attention has been drawn to it months ago for a very important reason. So we've been following it along and learning a lot about the Judah story, the people involved in it, the lineage, Abraham and Jacob and Isaac and Joseph and all those, and then even other distant connections related to us with Ezekiel prophesying, also the fig tree metaphor, which ties in with our time, tying back to the Shiloh prophecy and how they would be going together and how the last generation would see all these things starting. And so we have a lot drawing our attention that really made us perk up when we saw these celestial events happen in the context and the timing of what's going on in the world right now. And then recently was the third Star of Bethlehem. Very unique and very close. And this whole time, since the first Star of Bethlehem, we've been learning more and more and more. And we've also been learning a lot more about the shadow patterns in the feasts that have been happening at the same time. We've been learning more about how the picture is so much bigger than we realized. So right now we are in October, and we are expecting and we have full faith and hope in the gathering taking place. We've seen so much leading us up to this point that we have full expectation that everything else we've seen has been deliberately done with the hand of God and the last generation lining up with the times and seasons. We have full expectation that sometime here in October, before Jupiter reaches the Virgo stars on the Chaldean astronomical chart, we have full expectation that the gathering is going to happen sometime soon. We know the border is around here somewhere, and we're still trying to figure that out. And we've talked about how back around 606 to 536 BC, the division was at 150 degrees, when you equally divided the ecliptic into 30-degree segments, which is what they did back then. And so this is not arbitrary. You just figure out where the vernal equinox was back at those dates and then divide out segments of 30 degrees from that, and that's how they divided it. That's not something that I made up. The problem has been trying to figure out where the 150 degree mark would be compared to today, because since that is pegged to the vernal equinox, 150 degrees has now moved up to Regulus, because the vernal equinox moves slowly over time. And so we've been researching and trying to do the math and learning more and more about this, of trying to find the difference between these two locations and then approximating and interpolating the location of Jupiter in comparison. Of trying to figure out the difference between those two and then approximately where Jupiter would be relative to that historic border. And this is the information we've been putting out on the Finding Jupiter's Border document. So definitely check that out if you're interested in numbers. So we know the border is around here somewhere. We don't know exactly where, but we know it is around here somewhere, landing right with very important days that are being commemorated right now, with also scripture readings that are taking place. And this is also in a historic time relating to Daniel and the prophecy of Shiloh's first coming to as well. So there is a lot that we have been shown already, and why we are continuing to look and why we will continue to go forward, even though there's so much we don't know. And we know we don't have all the answers, that is for sure. But are we acting on what we do know? Now, right after October, and really around October 27th, Jupiter, the scepter, will be reaching the first star of Virgo, and will be entering into Virgo shortly after that, around November 17th, 18th, 19th. And also, depending on how you connect the lines there, there's variations on that even today. But Jupiter is shortly going to be starting the Revelation 12 sign, the sign of the Son of Man, right after it hits Virgo. And so there's almost no transition between the Lion of the Tribe of Judah sign, where we are right now, and then it almost jumping right into starting the sign of the Son of Man. Now, just for context, looking forward, Jupiter is going to be in Libra, the scales, on January 1st, 2018. That's not prophesied or anything, that's just showing where it's going to be. Then by the start of 2019, it's going to be there. Then 2020, it's going to be there. And then jumping all the way down to March 6, 2021, that would approximate the return. That's 1,260 days after September 23rd, 2017. In other words, the 3.5 years after the Revelation 12 sign. And Revelation 12:6 specifically says there's going to be these number of days after that sign. Then April 5th would be 1,290 days, which apparently would mark the 30 days of mourning for the Son of Man when they realized that he was the promised Messiah who came the first time. Then a month after that, Jupiter would be in Aquarius, the water bearer, which reminds us that he is the living water too as well. And so by looking forward in time, we have an idea of the context of the story, and that gives us a clue of where we are right now too as well. When we understand that the Revelation 12 sign is going to be happening in about a month, that should catch our attention. And then the Bible also tells us how many days will be after that event when he returns to rule and reign. And so by studying the story of the Alpha and Omega, we not only learn where we are right now, but it gives us ideas and understanding of what's the next chapter coming up, and then what's the broader chapter, and gives us a context of where we are in the story. Now going back to the Revelation 12 sign, that is going to happen on September 23rd, 2017. And it's a very unique and specific celestial description. And so we can look at that as a celestial time date marker. And a number of other people have researched about how it's very, very unique. And so when that prophecy was given, that was acting as a celestial date marker, where they could look forward in the future, and even us at our time now, we could identify what is that sign that he's describing, and what is the date for it. And then events after that celestial sign are pegged to that. For example, the 1,260 days after that, the Bible tells us that comes right after that sign. And so there are events that are described after that celestial date marker. And so we know for certainty on this celestial calendar and on the celestial clock that there are events, there are chapters that are going to be specifically given of the tribulation time period after that date marker for sure, and certainly some before that as well. But just looking at this sign, when you read the context of the chapter, it's rehearsing the promised Son of Man, the Son of the Woman, promised back from the Garden of Eden, part of the Shiloh prophecy, back in the Alpha portion, the Alpha chapter. That's what's being rehearsed there. How he did come the first time, but he is coming a second time. And what it's rehearsing is how that specific prophecy was fulfilled. He was born. So it's going through the pregnancy motions. Jupiter's path through both of these connected signs and constellations is totally unique. It's rehearsing two unique stories, two unique scenes on just this one pass-through that it's definitely not going to be doing again, definitely in our lifetime, that's for sure. This is a very unique celestial event, both of them. But we also mentioned how Jupiter's going to be entering Virgo in just a couple of weeks now, and it's actually going to start this pregnancy picture. Now, if you do the full math on a pregnancy, a full term versus a 42-week pregnancy, that's going to be starting technically in December of this year, but Jupiter's actually going to be entering Virgo visually, the actual stars of it, come October 26th at the earliest. So that sign, the rehearsal, is about to start. We're on the threshold of that almost starting too as well. So we have to keep that in context, and it gives us an understanding of where we are now too as well. We are running out of time before the next scene starts. And so we have to keep in mind not just the Revelation 12 sign. The Revelation 12 sign on September 23rd, 2017, that's the end of the pregnancy. The pregnancy is rehearsed prior to that. And that's going to be starting, that picture, that rehearsal is going to be starting real soon. And of course, we're expecting the scene where we're in right now, we're expecting the gathering to be concluded before it starts the next scene. We are expecting the gathering, knowing that there's going to be a lead up to the sign of the Son of Man. And mankind has had this celestial time and date marker for 2,000 years. This was a warning put out a long time ago so people would know the story of history, the Alpha and Omega. There is an end chapter. History has a set amount of time. This is another reason we shouldn't just live as though life will go on and that there's going to be many more generations in the world as we know it right now. No, there is a set given amount of time that prophetic events are going to happen on. We know from multiple things we are running out of time. And the Bible tells us and shows us that there are significant events dated in the future, and then has some ambiguity in between now and then, telling us that there's going to be some important events that will happen before that very important celestial date marker. And mankind has known about that date for 2,000 years. If you've heard or are familiar with the Antikythera device, you may have heard on National Geographic or whatever how it was discovered in a shipwreck many years ago, and it's a very complex mechanical computer, basically. And they've done a lot of research on it. It's fascinating to read about, but here's a modern replica of it. It's basically a celestial clock. And what it did was it showed the motion and the position of the 5 visible planets, including the sun and the moon and the phases of the moon. This was a complex calculator showing and modeling the clockwork of the celestial heavens. But one thing most people don't realize is this was made 100 years before Christ. Let that sink in. They were making these mechanical clocks to mimic the celestial heavens, the movements, and to keep track of them 100 years before the time of Christ. And they had incredible accuracy. And when you read the history about it and the research about it, the historians believe this was not the only instance of this clockwork. They believe that there were other instances of it too as well. But then you also have to realize, in order to make such a device, you already know the motions of the planets. You can do the math on paper, so to speak. And the Babylonians, the Chaldeans, going back hundreds of years, back to the time of Daniel again, they made almanacs that predicted the movements of the planets and the sun and the moon going forward hundreds of years that were accurate. And so you have to consider, keep this in mind, with this level of knowledge of the celestial heavens that they had even 100 years before Christ, when the book of Revelation was written and that specific astronomical date time marker was given, they had the knowledge back then to determine when that would be. Think about that. The Apostle John, or someone in the churches that was delivered to, no doubt could have easily taken it to the learned astronomers of their day and figured out the very close approximate time frame that prophecy was talking about and that celestial sign in the heavens was pointing to. And that's just from a human level too as well. That's not talking about what the angels know about the celestial clockwork too. And so when God says this sign is going to be in the tribulation, they know that too as well. And so we have to keep that in mind with the Revelation 12 sign. It's nothing new. We've recently rediscovered it in our time and with the average astronomy programs available to the average layperson today. But the knowledge of the date of that event has been long known by at least some individuals. But the Bible also plainly tells us that this is the sign of the Son of Man that's going to be seen in the tribulation. Matthew 24:29, Christ was telling his disciples, immediately after the tribulation of those days shall the sun be darkened, and the moon shall not give her light, and the stars shall fall from heaven, and the powers of the heavens shall be shaken, and then shall appear the sign of the Son of Man in heaven. And then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn, and they shall see the Son of Man coming in the clouds of heaven with power and great glory. Now, if you'll remember from Matthew 24, he's giving a very condensed, highlighted version of the end-time events. But notice that he tells them straight up, immediately after the tribulation of those days. Immediately after. So he's telling them there's going to be some really rough events of the tribulation time period to where even the powers of the heavens will be shaken. You know, this isn't just talking about earthly bad things happening. This is going to be a significant time that will happen immediately before this sign happens. And notice how he says, the powers of the heavens shall be shaken, and then shall appear. The Revelation 12 sign is not marking the beginning of the tribulation. No, it's within the tribulation. The tribulation has already started, and there's some major events happening before the Revelation 12 sign even happens. So we got to keep that in mind. Don't ignore the context of these signs. We can't look at them just boxed in by themselves. We have to look at the Bible context of the Alpha and Omega, then what the Alpha and Omega has said about this sign too as well. It's going to be happening after the tribulation has already started, which should also make us consider what the Alpha and Omega has also said about when he's gathering his people right before the tribulation starts. So we got to keep all this in context. The Revelation 12 sign is within the tribulation. And of course, the book of Revelation tells us that right after that, for sure, is the last half of the tribulation. And we know that, and so we could see that in the future just where we are right now. That time is very short, and there's some major significant events that are about to happen. And the Bible tells us, and Jesus told his disciples personally, face to face, that there were going to be some major shaking even of the heavens before the Revelation 12 sign. And notice that there is a colon after this sign. Then shall appear the sign of the Son Man in heaven, colon. There's going to be a pause in the time, so to speak. There's going to be a gap between that sign, and then shall all the tribes of the earth mourn. There's going to be a gap between this sign and his actual coming. But the sign is that he's coming. And there's going to be a gap before that. But the sign is that he's coming. So not only did Christ tell us when it's going to happen, he also tells us what it's a sign of. It's rehearsing that he came the first time, and it's a warning that he's about to come the second time. And so when we look at the context of the story, and then where we see where we are right now, and also the other context that he has said in the book of Revelation, the Alpha and Omega, we know the Lion of the tribe of Judah is going to be with his gathered people before the tribulation starts, Revelation chapter 5, which goes in context in our understanding also of the celestial clock too as well. We have full expectation that the gathering will take place before the next chapter starts. The Bible makes it clear that he gathers his people before he opens the very first seal, before he even takes the book and opens the seals. So there is no doubt that the gathering takes place before the tribulation. And so we have to keep that in context that the gathering is going to be before the tribulation, and the tribulation is going to start before the Revelation 12 sign. There's going to be some significant events between now and then. But we also know the Bible tells us that Satan will be allowed to change time for a season, Daniel 7:25. And so we know it's not going to be a straight shot from here to the Revelation 12 sign. We know that Satan is going to be allowed to turn back the hands of time and mess with the clock, so to speak. We don't know the exact details, but we know that Daniel, who prophesied of Christ's first coming, and who also prophesied about the Antichrist, Daniel knew that only God can change the times and the seasons. He's not talking about shuffling things around on the calendar and moving seasons and festivals and holy days around on the calendar. Mankind's been doing that for thousands of years. They were doing that even at Daniel's time. And we've certainly been seeing a lot of confusion today with just how everything is scrambled up on a calendar, on a paper calendar. That's not what Daniel was talking about. Daniel had the authority to change the calendar. He's talking about only God can actually change time and seasons of time and the laws and ordinances related to the natural world and the celestial clock. And he tells us quite plainly that, first of all, God's the only one who can change this stuff, but he is going to give the Antichrist this ability for just a short time, once he is unrestrained. And this has been a key part of their plan. They've been thinking about it, and they've been planning about how to use the changing of time for their advantage, knowing that it will be given into their hand for a short time. And we talk about this in our video, Time, CERN, in the Bible, as well as our Revelation Spiral of Time playlist, the videos on that. And then we also have our poster, Revelation Spiral of Time, which summarizes it and other biblical pictures related to it. Understanding time is important on so many levels. And understanding from a biblical perspective that time is going to be interfered with and changed and manipulated between sometime starting soon and the Revelation 12 sign, the Bible tells us it is going to be messed with for a period of time, times, and half a time. And even the book of Revelation is very vague on describing the first half of the tribulation before the Revelation 12 sign. After the Revelation 12 sign, it gives specifics. There's 1,260 days after this point. The first time periods are inferred. And so it's very interesting when you study that, yes, time is going to be vague during that first half. It's going to be described in periods of time, times, and half a time, because time is going to be messed with. It's not going to be a set time like after that. And the Revelation 12 chapter even tells us that at that specific sign of the Revelation 12 sign, Satan now knows his time is short. It's not that he woke up one day and realized that he'd been wasting his whole life. No, he realized that his playtime with time is over. And at that celestial marker, his playtime is up. And he now knows, too, he only has 1,260 days until the coming of the Son of Man, which is what the whole sign is about. It's a sign to the world, but it's also a sign in the heavens that the devil's time is about to be up too. Because it's signaling that Shiloh is about to come the second time as King of Kings, and he's about to ride into Jerusalem after he treads out the winepress, which is part of the Shiloh prophecy. The Shiloh story is not done. The signs have not changed. The story has not changed. This story is not finished yet. Shiloh is going to be coming a second time, and he's going to be coming and finishing the Genesis Shiloh prophecy years from where we are now. It's still ongoing. He is the Alpha and Omega, and the heavens declare the glory of God, and they tell his story. And the Lion of the tribe of Judah is going to enter Jerusalem triumphantly as the King of Kings. And that's going to usher in the millennial reign of Christ, which is also involved with the marriage feast too as well, but then also the pictures again rooted in the Shiloh prophecy in Genesis. The story is still ongoing. And when we understand the Shiloh story, that tells us what's in the future and also gives us an understanding of where we are right now. So we know we are at the end of the Shiloh Lion of the tribe of Judah chapter. We know that is about to come to a close and about to change chapters to the woman and the sign of the coming of the Son of Man, which is the warning that he's coming in a set amount of time after that point. And we know that that chapter is going to start its picture very soon from where we are right now. We know time is limited. We know we are running out of time. We also know there are things we don't know. But when we know the story, and we can see it acted out on the celestial stage and see it lining up with scripture and biblical commemorations at this time, when we know the time and the seasons and how it lines up with the signs, we have been shown so much that we must not forget. And we take the warnings and the callings of God and we go forward with what we do know. We go forward in faith with full expectation that he will fulfill the Shiloh prophecy. He will fulfill the gathering of his people. It may not quite be in the exact way that we think, but we will have a very good idea, and we already have a very good idea of it. But we can go forward in faith on what we do know, trusting that He will be faithful. Hebrews 11:5. By faith Enoch was translated that he should not see death, was not found because God had translated him. For before his translation he had this testimony, that he pleased God. But without faith it is impossible to please him. For he that cometh to God must believe that he is, and that he is a rewarder of them that diligently seek him. This is what we should strive to do now, not just with an understanding of prophecy, but we should desire to seek Him faithfully as we spend time in His Word, spend time with Him, spend time in prayer. Let us diligently seek Him in our life now, and that's how we rise up and go out to meet our bridegroom halfway. Are we seeking Him now? Are we being faithful to draw nigh to Him now? Hebrews chapter 11 gives so many examples of those who acted on what they knew, knowing that there were things that they did not know. And likewise, we look to their example. And we follow their example, and we go forward in faith, even though there are things we don't know. What we have seen, the promises we have seen, even the signs and warnings we have seen, we can receive those. We can embrace those. We can be persuaded of them that, yes, the same one who showed us those signs and brought them to our attention and is giving us insight about them, the same one will be faithful to finish what He has shown us. We can embrace the promises of what we have been shown, knowing that the one who has shown us the signs, the Lion of the tribe of Judah, the Alpha and the Omega, we know He has prepared for us a place, and He has promised that one day He is going to come and receive us unto Himself. We can embrace that promise, and we can go forward even though there are things we don't know, even though it is a midnight hour and it is dark out and we can't see Him, we don't know exactly where He's at, we can still go forward in faith because we have embraced the promises that He has given. We don't know the exact details of the days ahead. We hedge our expectations as we go forward. But I highly suggest that you read Luke chapter 24. Luke chapter 24, the road to Emmaus. And just study the story of the disciples who got focused on a date. And they got focused on promises that weren't fulfilled the way that they thought they would be fulfilled. And Jesus came alongside them and He rehearsed certain things for them. And if you are familiar with what we've been studying lately, you will see what He reminded them to focus on. So definitely study Luke chapter 24. God has shown us so much. Our bridegroom has given the midnight cry. We have heard the warnings. We have also heard His promises. He has called to us to rise up and go out to meet Him. So even though there are things we do not know, we will keep calm. We will rise up. We will trim our lamp, and we will go forward, serving Christ first and highest above all else. Maranatha.